What does your faith look like to you?
My faith is so broad. You know, this year I was in India, I was in an ashram for 2-3 weeks, and there was a guru there. But I definitely went to India this year because I wanted change, and there were things in my spirit, in my things I was experiencing that just weren't changing, weren't moving. A big part of my astrology journey has been to understand, you know, why I couldn't meet someone and have a settled relationship. Why didn't it work for me? It worked for all my friends. I get to 30 and everything keeps breaking down, and it's like, okay, I want to understand relationships. And then throughout that, there's been the past life healing and the numerology and the cardology and the Reiki and the tarot and the crystals and, you know, the homeopathy and then the herbal medicine. It's all been this journey of healing and understanding how do we feel that.
What's homeopathy?
Oh, homeopathy it's natural healing. Dr. Emoto is this Japanese dude who had lots of water and spoke to it. And so he said, I hate you or I love you and all these things. And then they freeze the water and the crystals either look happy or they look sad. So it's the idea that water holds memory or molecules hold memory. So homeopathy is a little bit of like a bird or a rock or a mineral. There's a homeopathic remedy called Berlin Wall that gets a lot of stick, but it is really, really powerful because it's literally the Berlin Wall put in some water, shaken up. And don't quote me on this because I'm not a professional, but I'm just very into it.
Yeah.
And then it holds the energy of what must have been like growing up in Germany, in East Germany, with the Berlin Wall, and then you take it for oppression, suppression, depression, and repression. They're the key motifs, and it helps you. So it's just like treats like, basically. Just take little sugar pills with basically nothing but energy, and it heals.
Benjamin, what's your thoughts on what Francesca just said?
Well, I mean, many parts of it are science. So, you know, there is an experiment where they planted a seed in 2 pots and they played Hitler speeches to one and they played classical music to the other. And the one with the classical music grew faster and stronger. We absorb energy that is not some abstract idea, that is scientifically proven. You know, every time we speak, the reason we can hear each other is because of the vibrations. And so I think there's definitely a truth to that. Why is it that exists? Well, it's evolution of thousands of years, and human beings have been doing that the answers to a lot of our questions are in each other or in our planet.
Your thoughts?
I think it blows my blooming mind. I think it is a lot. It really struck me, actually. Just as you were saying, you know, they speak to the water, and they say, oh, you're bad, or you're angry, or... And I think to believe that God is a loving Father, He is a good God. He would never speak to me the way that person may speak to water. That's a great comfort to be a Christian, to know that my Father is always going to speak well of me. He's going to sing over me. He's going to love me.
But here's the thing, right? You seem well adjusted and your interpretation of religion is about love and it's appropriate for the time and culture we live in. But how do you explain then the women that are beaten by the husbands, for example, or vice versa, that don't get that moment that gets them out of it, that something doesn't happen that escapes them from it? Because that's my problem. People use it for the good, but actually there are infinite more examples, especially in other parts of the world, where that opportunity doesn't come.
I'm curious to know, how do you have good and bad if you don't believe in anything? If you don't believe in God, how
Because good and bad is human, because, you know, that's because we are relational beings, and therefore we have a sense of good and bad, I think, that is innate, because we know how we need to be treated to survive.
I don't understand from the atheist point of view how you arrive at you're enjoying goodness when you don't believe there's a God who is good. Because if it's just going to come from whatever you believe it's come from, how do you know that is a good starting place?
It is in our nature to be relational and to have a survival instinct. And our survival instinct is about what lets us continue. And that is looking after each other, looking after ourselves, having relationships. Those are human evolutionary behaviors. What you're doing is trying to explain it and maybe make those questions easier by saying there's something up there that's doing it. But actually, they are learned behaviors over thousands, maybe millions of years that we have developed as beings.
I think from an astrology perspective, one of these relationship astrology books I read was by Liz Green, who's a therapist, psychologist, and an astrologer, is the idea that if women who end up with one in an abusive relationship and then they leave it and then they marry another one and they keep ending up in the same situation, there's a part of their self that they're not expressing. So they would say it's if a woman with a very strong Mars, so perhaps she was told when she was a child she was too much, she was too boisterous, she was too feisty, so she suppresses it, then you get other people to do it for you. So I would suggest in that instance that there is a part of herself, that will wake up eventually and start standing up. But it's the universe saying, oi, stand up for yourself. You get other people to do the energy for you if you're not doing it yourself. And eventually a transit will come that's why after 20 years of abuse, does a woman suddenly go, I'm off? And that would be a moment of inspiration, a moment of spirit where they have experienced all they need to experience and then move.
But I don't think it's that abstract, because people tend to find what they're looking for. It's why we talk about manifesting dreams, right? The reason those career goals, for example, come true is because you're thinking along those lines all the time, and eventually you will find the thing that will help you take the step. Someone in that situation who's been abused for 20 years will eventually find it because they're looking for it. That is a human, rational survival instinct.
But why in that moment?
Well, because it takes time. The point is eventually it happens, because if you look for it long enough, there's some luck you'll find it.
There are some people who feel like they live in a hell now, but to say that God is not there or not present, the Bible says he's close to the brokenhearted, he's close to those who are suffering. He doesn't turn a blind eye, he's absolutely there. But there is also a responsibility that humans have to say, yeah, we are capable of horrible, horrible, horrible atrocities. And so there is going to come a day where there's going to be a judgment on that.
I keep thinking suffering is when we don't accept the situation we're in. Mm-hmm. If you accept it, maybe you're in physical pain, but accept it, are you suffering? And when I can see images in my head of, the news basically and all these terrible things that we see. And I think maybe there is an acceptance and hope and faith and trust that, again, even when I was in India, there were so many people living on the streets with nothing, but there's less between them and God. There's less between them and hope and faith, because they've not packed their lives with other things. And so, yeah, I guess hope is the bridge. But if you're in emotional pain, if you're in a war-torn country, are you suffering the whole time? Or are you finding joy in the moments and accepting your reality and praying and hoping with faith that it will change?